Hey, Who fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And welcome to episode 349.
Yeah.
Welcome to another week, another episode of the old Big Blue Box. It's great to have you here. Thank you very much for joining us. If you've just discovered this podcast, then welcome. It's all good. I hope this is a good first experience checking out the podcast, or it could go horribly wrong. Who knows? But if you're one of the long-time listeners, one of the old grizzled ancients, then welcome back. It's good to have you all here listening to us waffle about Doctor Who, as always. Last week was an interesting one. We got some feedback about the episode last week. So that was a really interesting one. We couldn't hide it. This is a good point, actually. For those that I just mentioned, if you are just joining us, if this is your first ep or your first few eps of listening to our podcast, then we don't subscribe to the whole follow the crowd or the other end of the scale. We don't just say if anything's good or bad or not just for the sake of it. We'll give you our 100% honest opinions, which I think is important. So we had a few people say, "Oh, you guys are trash. You guys are rubbish now, because you've given a negative review." And there was a few people that said, yeah, it's just not on. You shouldn't be criticising the show every time there's something poor or there's a poor episode. So, you know, if that's your view, then that's all good. That's cool. But yeah, obviously we don't agree. We feel like there's nothing wrong with some criticism, especially of Doctor Who. It's not like what I'm trying to say, it's not like the show should just sort of tread water and, you know, wade through treacle and especially with the episode that we reviewed last year, Legends of the Sea Devils, where there were some shocking bits, let's be honest, and
yeah,
you know, narratively and visual effects wise and stuff. Some of that wasn't great, but and we feel like we should
shy away from our opinion.
Not at all, no. And we feel like we should hold the Beeb and whoever else chibbers and stuff accountable for that, because we want a really good show.
I'll tell you what, mate, I've enjoyed listening to some of the other podcasts as well, just to see if we were in line with them. And we pretty much were, actually. I think every review I've listened to has actually agreed with ours, which made me feel a bit better, because I think when we finished recording last week, we were both like, "Oh, that was a bit ranty," or "No," you know. We don't like to criticise stuff to that extent, but it really was that sort of episode. So I've enjoyed listening to other podcasts this week just to see what they think. And do you know what really brings it home to me is I was listening to I think it's just called the Doctor Who Show podcast, you know, that one that was running for years, and they do like a UK and British review, and the UK guys was pretty much saying the same as us, and I thought, it'll be interesting to hear the American version next week to see, because normally they're much more positive, those guys. And so I listened to it yesterday, and there's a guy in there, I forget his name, he's always the most positive one of the lot. Always. And I've never heard anyone get so angry on a podcast before. He absolutely obliterated it. And I was thinking, wow, if these guys are getting that cross, then we're fine. I mean, he was much more angry than we were. I've never heard him like that about an episode ever. So yeah, I think it's cool. I think the general consensus was it just wasn't a great episode, and I think we're called it. I think a lot of people, not everybody, obviously, I think a lot of people agreed with the criticisms that were given for it. It was a bit of a letdown. So it's all good, I think. But probably not the best podcast. If you've never listened to us before, imagine if that's your first one. Let's give these guys a go. They've been going for years. Let's listen to the Sea Devil review. Blimey.
Yeah, no, I read you. And I had the same thing, dude. Listen to a few. I don't listen to too many Doctor Who podcasts these days, just because, you can't. There's not enough hours in the day to listen to.
No, exactly.
To all that stuff. And listen to plenty of other podcasts as well. So I haven't got time to listen to all of them. So I think I listen to about 3 or 4 these days, and they were very much of the same opinion, pretty much. So
the Doctor Who show one's good. We both listen to that, don't we?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's me going for
I think that's the first one I listened to because they get theirs out pretty quick. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And so if that was your opinion, dear listener, then that's all great. You know, we'd never argue with you or get into it with you if that's your opinion, that's all good. But similarly, or conversely, we also had some really good feedback to say. You know, it was an honest review, which is good, because we've been down this road many times before where we've spoken about other podcasters or YouTube creators or people that are in the Doctor Who space that have at some point or are now attached to the BBC in some way. Their hands are tied. So even if they didn't like it, they have to say they like it, if you know what I mean. So we would
riding the BBC gravy train. Yes,
we would certainly not go down that road. But anyway, that was last week. So I hope you enjoyed that review. This week, though, it's going to be fairly light on news. Got nothing to talk about. So we are going to get into our review of our Matt Smith story, his last ever story, The Time of the Doctor, which will be good. But and it's very light. So, dude, have you had a good week? I know you haven't done anything too hooey, but you all good, mate?
Yes, I'm all good. Yeah, I haven't done much Who related. No, I've started reading the Endgame book, which you highly recommended, and I'm thoroughly enjoying that so far. It's about the sort of wilderness years between the TV movie and when the show returned in 2005, and it's interesting because there was so much going on behind the scenes about why Doctor Who didn't and couldn't return. And I'm about 3/4 or maybe halfway through. Other than that, I haven't really had time to do anything else Doctor Who related, mate. So how about yourself? You all good?
Yeah, I'm cool. But oh crap, I missed the old anything Who related in the intro. Should we do it now? I hope you've all had a cracking week and that you've managed to do something Doctor Who related.
God, we're slacking.
I missed that out.
We've only been doing this for 20 years. Why? How can we forget that?
Yeah. Yep, but believe it or not, there will be at least one person that will tweet and say, "You missed out the Who related bit at the beginning of the of this week's podcast. What's going on? You guys changing the format?
Like to mix it up?
Yeah, you changing the format? Because if so, I'll have to reconsider subscribing to the podcast. So make sure you get that in, please. I hope you've all done something Doctor Who related. Adam's done naffle. Same for me. I've just not watched or read anything this week. So it's been nice and quiet. And I think that's because there's just other stuff, as always, to get through and watch and stuff. So there's a few bits on Netflix and Disney Plus I've been catching up on and reading some other books at the minute. So no time for Who-y stuff at the moment. So hopefully in the next week or two, I'll get back to reading another book or something or whatever.
What we really need, my friend, is for season 22 to blimmin' be released. What's happened to it? Where is season 22? Let's start a campaign.
I genuinely forgot.
Seems to have vanished.
Yeah, where's that gone then? Because that was wasn't that meant to be released this month, April? I'm sure it was meant to be the end of April. We were getting that.
Well, the BFI thing was weeks ago. Normally it's like the week after, isn't it, or a couple of weeks after? And yeah, strange. There must be some sort of hold up with it somewhere. Because it's not even got a date yet, has it? That's the weird thing. It's not even got a release date. It's very strange.
Let's have a look. Yeah, so I pre-ordered mine from Amazon. It just says not yet dispatched, no date. So
evil old Amazon.
Yeah, because I placed that on the 20th of January.
There you go.
That order. I'm sure it was April, they said initially. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I've completely forgotten, but yeah.
But that's what we need. We need some Blu-ray extras to get into to tide us through this tumbleweed months. Indeed. Up until the special,
up to the special, the centenary special. Oh yeah, there was one just very quickly, there was one quick little article, like actually a couple of little articles that I saw, and remember when we say this all the time, but when Adam and I go into an episode before we start recording, we're like, okay, let's see if there's any news to go through, all that stuff. And we're very organised. We have like a little sheet and we have our
spreadsheet. Oh yeah.
Yep. News articles and links and that stuff. And if there's no news, we just say that. So you guys would have heard many times that when we jump in an episode, if there's no news, we'll normally say something like, it's very quiet out there at the minute, there's no news, so we're going to crack straight on with, etc. Newspapers, no. When there's no Doctor Who news, we have this thing in the UK. I suppose I have it in everywhere, every country, but in the UK especially, things like places like the Radio Times and the Express and some other outlets, they just start making stuff up. It's fascinating. It's like, so we haven't got any legit Doctor Who news to talk about. Actually, they do one of two things. It's either let's just make some stuff up. We will take the thinnest thing possible out there and we'll make a story out of it. Or we'll just recycle something that was in Doctor Who 8 years ago and we'll make that into a story. So the one that I saw this week or this morning was it was on the Radio Times, and it was about the upcoming special, the centenary special, Jodie's last one, and absolutely nothing of value in there, nothing at all. There's no announcement, anything like that. It was just Who fans are in for a rough ride for Jodie's last episode. Is it in trouble already? Question mark. And I was thinking,
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. I didn't read it, but I saw the headline.
This is serious. What's all this about then? And then when you read the article, it's basically because there's a bunch of people in it as well as Jodie, it's now in trouble. That's literally it. The crux of the story.
I mean, probably true, but yes, let's wait and see the actual episode.
Exactly. Yeah.
First.
Yeah. So it was like, we've got these old companions coming back. We've got the Master in it. We've got these other people. And that now means that the focus is not on Jodie. So her last story is going to be a washout. That was the crux of that story. And then the other thing was another article. I can't remember what outlet it was. I think it was the Express. Russell T Davies was somewhere last week or in the last few days and took a selfie with an actress. I forget her name. And the headline was, Who fans are now in a frenzy at the shadow announcement of the next the next Doctor. And it was a selfie he'd taken with an actress. And then, Who fans had jumped on that and said, this is perfect timing. She's now the next Doctor because she's working with Russell on this secret project. Blah, blah, blah. So there you go. I can't even remember the actress's name, but there you go. There's your 14th Doctor announcement. Yep. A selfie on Instagram from Russell. So that's all that's been happening in the nonsense era of Doctor Who news.
The nonsense. Yeah, we've gone from the wilderness years to the nonsense years.
It's great, isn't it, eh? So anyway, before we crack on with our review, we would love it if you subscribed and followed our podcast in your preferred podcast app of choice. We put a new episode out every Friday, so if you're following or subscribed, then you won't miss it. You'll keep up to date with our waffle and keeping you up to date with the nonsense, etc. And you can listen to that in your podcast app, or you can listen for free over on the website, bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. All the eps are on there, as well as all of the articles and reviews from our writing team. And we're on the socials too, Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. Links on the website. We chat Doctor Who throughout the week, so come and get involved over there. Plus we have a free Discord server. There's a link on the website. Hop in there and chat plenty of Who with some very, very cool Who fans. We've got a lovely little community there of very cool Who fans. So go and do that. And lastly, remember to go over to Adam's channel over on YouTube. It is called The Geek's Handbag.
The Geek's Handbag, yes. I'll have some, I'll have a new vid out Friday, hopefully. I've been working on this all week. I've hardly left the house, actually. Go and check out my channel, lots of Doctor Who stuff. And one lone Star Wars video that failed. Oh. But lots of Doctor Who videos. Go and have a look at them.
Go and check them out. And Adam's on the socials as well, under the same name, The Geek's Handbag. So go and follow him for cool Doctor Who and the odd Star Wars tidbit of content.
I'll tell you what I haven't done for ages is an on-the-spot review. I used to like doing those. You remember I used to do film reviews.
They were cool, mate.
I liked the little theme as well. Yeah, might start doing them again. Don't know. Maybe... when a good film comes out. I was trying to think of a good film. Is there anything good coming out? Doctor Strange, maybe?
Oh, the next Doctor Strange Marvel stuff, yeah.
There's nothing really good coming out, though, is there?
Yeah. You went to see The Batman, didn't you? You could have done one for that.
Yeah, I went to see The Batman, yeah.
Missed opportunities.
Very dark. That was very dark.
Yeah. Anyway, housekeeping out the way and all that stuff. Thank you very much, Who fan, for doing that stuff, if you haven't already. We are now going to crack on with our review. So, dude, what is it this week?
Yeah, so we're drifting back to the Matt Smith era and the end of his era, actually, with Time of the Doctor.
And now it's time for one last bow. Like all your other selves, 11's hour is over now. The clock is striking 12s.
The siege of Trenzalore is now begun.
The Time Lord has entered the trap.
Help him change the future. Do it!
The Doctor is regenerating! If you want my life!
That bassy theme that never got a release. Did Murray not like that theme or something? But it bugs me that never got a release on the soundtrack.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he tweeted at some point to say that he was working on that stuff, didn't he? He said he was doing a different mix or making sure it was all good, but it just never...
Come on, Murray.
Saw the light of day.
No.
Anyway, the time of the Doctor. This is where the Moff went through his phase of, I need to do something, bunch of episodes and call them of the Doctor, so we need something.
Yeah, it's confusing, isn't it? Night of the Doctor, Day of the Doctor. What's the other one? There's another one as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Don't know. Time of the Doctor.
Afternoon of the Doctor.
Afternoon tea of the Doctor, yeah. So this was first broadcast on Christmas Day in 2013. It ran for an hour, and it was written by the Moff Bag and directed by Jamie Payne. It stars Matt Smith, Jenna Coleman, and a reasonably sized supporting cast. And the synopsis is, orbiting a quiet backwater planet, the massed forces of the universe's deadliest species gather, drawn to a mysterious message that echoes out to the stars. Among them, the 11th Doctor. Rescuing Clara from a family Christmas dinner, the Time Lord and his companion must learn what this enigmatic signal means for his own fate and that of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Right, dude, straight up, off the bat, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I've been looking forward to going back and watching this one because I've only ever watched it once. Can you believe that? Which would have been Christmas Day in, when was it? 2013.
Yeah.
And I haven't watched it since. And the reason for that is, although I thought it was okay at the time, I wasn't a big fan of this particular episode. I'm such a big fan of Matt Smith. He's my favourite Doctor from the new era. I think he's absolutely brilliant, Matt Smith. And I think at the time, I'd had a few drinks and I settled down to watch this, and it just felt like, I think this is a perfect example of not knowing how good you had it at the time, So I watched this again yesterday, but I'll get to that in just a second. So I'm watching this on Christmas Day in 2013, and it just felt like very Moffat-y in terms of, it didn't, for me at the time, it didn't seem to know where it was going. It seemed like he was throwing in every monster under the sun, Daleks, Cybermen, Weeping Angels, just throwing everything at it in the kitchen sink. Just, I don't know, it just didn't stick in my mind as being particularly great for Matt's era to end on. And then I watched this again yesterday, and as I said, I've been quite looking forward to revisiting this one to see how well it stands up. And I just really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed it, actually. So I think maybe it's because I was sober, because I was a bit pie-eyed on Christmas Day back in 2013. But I just thought, one thing I noticed straight away was that I was smiling within minutes. It just reminded me how sharp Moffat's scripts are. So you got the Doctor and Handles at the beginning and all that banter, and I just realised I'd got a big smile on my face and I was laughing at the dialogue. So within minutes, I'm enjoying this episode. I'm not going to say it's like the best story, but the performances in it are superb. And this is what I mean about not appreciating what we had at the time, or I'll speak for myself here and maybe some other people. I just thought the writing was funny. I thought the performances were excellent, especially from Matt Smith, who's superb. And it pains me to say it, but even Jenna Coleman's good in it. And I thought actually, if you watch and listen to the dialogue, and yes, it does have everything thrown in, including the kitchen sink, but if you just watch it and listen to what's being said, it's a really fun and touching episode for Matt Smith to go out on. And when it finished, the reason I really enjoyed it is because it made me feel things. It made me smile, it made me laugh, and it made me cry. And I got to the end of it and I thought, you know what? There is an episode that I've let gather dust all these years thinking it was a bit of a, naff ending to Matt's era. And actually, it's a really good ending. And Matt goes out literally in a bang. It's in style. He plays that old Doctor so well. And I love this idea now of him being on the planet and becoming this like granddad figure protecting the universe. I don't know. I just loved it. And I like it when this happens. I like it when I think an episode's not too good and we revisit it and it's so much better than I remembered. Yeah. So it's getting a massive thumbs up for me. I don't know why I didn't appreciate it at the time, but I really enjoyed it yesterday.
Good stuff, dude. You like this one?
What about yourself?
Yeah, so, no. It's a thumbs down from me, dude.
Really?
No, I loved it. I thought it was really good. I thought it was...
you doing your Simon Cowell? I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, I thought it was a very, very good episode. There's the obvious one where I wouldn't say it's a problem, but there's the obvious kind of story issue that I think a lot of people share this opinion where, because the Moff was a fan of carrying stuff over across episodes and series, and then and surprisingly, tying up a few things that were across Matt's entire era.
Yeah, there
is that thing where it just feels like at times like we're just sort of piling things on top of one another.
Definitely.
And you feel like, I can see what he's trying to do here. He's trying to wrap. You remember what they did with Tennant's era, but just not when Russell did that, but just not in a story narrative way, but more of a character closeout way, where at the end he went off and visited a few people to say his goodbyes. Yes. And then at the end you had Rose, and it's kind of reset the circle. So that was the first time Rose ever saw him, but that's the last time he's seeing Rose. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
Russell sort of made a bit of a thing about Tennant's departure, but rounded it out from a character perspective. What Moff's done here is he's done a similar thing, but he's done it more from the story and narrative perspective from all the previous series up to this point. So we kind of get an answer for the silence, and then the crack in the wall and that stuff.
The TARDIS exploding gets an explanation, doesn't it? And all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that stuff when he sort of admits that the TARDIS explosion was the result of all these various cracks in time in the universe, and Gallifrey and the Time Lords being trapped in the pocket universe, and he kind of takes some responsibility for that and all that jazz. And so yeah, it kind of, Moffat tries to do that, and there's been some people that have said, they try to cram it all in and the runtime's not long enough and stuff like that. So I kind of get that. I do get that. But for me, dude, it was just a really enjoyable watch. And I think you absolutely nailed it, mate, when you said that when we've been watching a lot of, obviously, the Chibnall era over the last couple of years, and we've reviewed all of Jodie's stuff, with the exception of some standout episodes from that era, we really didn't know how wonderful we had it pre-Chibbers. I know I probably upset lots of Chibbers and Jodie fans when they hear us say that kind of thing, but I think we don't have to wait until the next Jodie special to summarise that. The Jodie era is it just hasn't really landed with us, as opposed to the Russell and the Stephen Moffat era. So when I watched this, and it was just the way it's written and the way it's the production on it, which is not as cinematic as the Jodie's era, but it still had a beautiful look about it, and Murray's music and the performance from Matt as the Doctor, it all just sort of came together, and I thought, wow, Doctor Who was, in my opinion, so much better when we had Moffat and Russell, doing their thing. And so it was just for that reason alone, and also Matt's performance, as you said, it's just...
He's incredible.
Amazing, yeah. So for that reason alone, dude, when the episode finished, I did have a little tear in my eye, and it was a little bit of a choke-up moment, and then it was almost like a slap in the face in the last few seconds when Capaldi jumps on screen, and it's like, bloody hell, that's, that was amazing back in the day. So yeah, I really did enjoy it, dude. I thought it was a great story, a little bit convoluted at times, because I think I'm really trying to figure out if Moffat, which way round he did it. Did he sort of say, as he was going through Matt Smith's era, right, guys, I've got an idea or two or 100, and I'm going to just keep these going, drop a few of them out, and then I'm going to wrap it all up at the end? Or did he get to the end and think, I don't want to leave that as an open book, I want to tie that up, and I want to tie that up? So I'm not sure which way round that happened, but either way, it's a little bit convoluted. But yeah, at the end of it, I just thought, wow, that was a really good, really, really good, just decent episode of Doctor Who. Does it have like the finale end of series status that we've maybe pinned on some other ones. I'm not sure, but it was definitely a very good Matt Smith episode. Anyway.
Yeah, I think that's what I didn't appreciate at the time. Was I think for Matt's last episode, I was hoping it'd be some rip-roaring adventure and it'd be spinning around doing what Matt does, and this was very much an episode of the Doctor, you know, settling down and growing old, and I didn't appreciate that because I you know, I wanted Matt to go out sort of in a blaze of glory, and he does. Now I rewatch it, this is very much a love letter to Matt's Doctor. It's you know, it's him sacrificing himself to save this, you know, little town, this little place. And, you know, he keeps looking at the young lad on the screen thinking, I can't abandon them, I've got to go back and all this. And as I said, it really resonated with me yesterday. I just felt like this actually is a lovely, beautiful episode, almost dedicated to Matt's Doctor. And I think that's what I didn't get, you know, back in 2013. I just thought it seemed a bit ploddy, and I was like, well, it's just, yeah, the Doctor's not really doing anything, but it's all about the Doctor's character and the scenes in it as well, like when Clara goes back to see him and he's really old and she's like reading that letter on his knee and stuff like that. It's so many beautiful scenes in it that I just, you know, I'm sat there thinking, you know, what was I thinking? Why this is beautiful stuff. You know, Moffat knows how to write comedy. It doesn't always land, but most of the time it does. So like the naked clothes thing, it doesn't really work for me. I don't really find that particularly funny, a bit cringe actually. But other bits, you know, like the stuff with Handels, I thought was hilarious. I mean, Handels himself, I could just watch a whole series of the Doctor and Handels travelling together. I mean, Matt Smith is brilliant at talking to that thing. It's just a Cyberman head, you know. It's like, it shouldn't work, but Matt makes it work, and the writing makes it work. When Handels dies, I had a little, I was getting choked up. I was thinking, I'm crying over a Cyberman head. How is this happening? You know, that's what I mean. Moffat's writing, you know, you, me, anybody can criticise all we like for some of the stuff he's done. And Moffat will criticise himself for stuff that he didn't get right. But most of the time, I think he got a lot of stuff right. And I think he's good at writing comedy, and I think he's good at writing emotional stuff as well. Matt's speech at the end is just phenomenal, and it gets quoted a lot, doesn't it? The whole, we all change when you think about it, everything, you know, times change, so must I. It's you know, I was just watching this thinking the writing is on another level. It's superb. You know, we really, or I'm going to just say me, but I really, you know, appreciate Stephen Moffat so much more when I go back and revisit his work.
Yeah, true. And we've had that with quite a few Moff episodes, haven't we, over the last year or two, that we've gone back and steadily sort of gone through each one, through especially Matt's era. And it does strike a chord like years later. And that's the wonderful thing about having to, you know, it's a wonderful problem for us to have as we've gone through our podcast. It's like, we have to go through and even visit some of the episodes that we weren't really fond of, like you thought that you weren't a fan of this one. And it's before you watch it, we kind of have that. Well, of course, we know we'll watch it because, you know, we need to watch it to review it for the podcast and stuff. But
yeah,
it's like, I really wasn't a fan of that. Or it's like, I can't remember exactly. I just know I wasn't a fan of it. But then we watch it and it's, you know, we end up with this conclusion where actually, now that the dust has settled for, when was it, 2013, it's going on nearly 10 years now. And then you go back and watch it. It's like, actually, that was pretty sweet. And the way that Moff, we did criticise him quite heavily, didn't we? About having these big old arcs that go through the series, and he almost writes himself into a corner at times because, you know, you can't progress one thing because you've got this massive boulder that you're dragging along behind you, which is the arc you need to wrap up at some point. So that kind of creatively limits, I suppose, what you can do. But I just found those, like his writing for Matt as a character in this was lovely. And just, I don't know, Matt just seems to have I'm not sure if it was the way that Moffat had written the Doctor in this one, or a combination of Matt's own personal sort of feelings at the time when they filmed it and made it. But he seemed to have a very what's the best way I can describe this? You know, when it's your last day of school and you think to yourself, why was I even bothered about putting pressure on myself about exams and putting pressure on myself about this, or being bothered about being told off by a teacher, whatever. Now it just all seems to be just floating off you, like,
Yeah.
So he's got that kind of last day of school, or like, he's just finished school kind of thing. So now he knows, I'll do this however I want to, this is my role, this is my doctor, and I'll do it however I want. So there's a few moments where we have the typical shouty scene where he's shouting at the Daleks when he's old, the old doctor when he's at the top of the clock tower. Yeah. So we have that typical thing, which Moff loves to write for. But then for me, the bits that I loved was when Matt was in those quieter scenes where he's having that sort of flirty interaction between Tasha Lem, the head of the church.
Yeah.
Normally that would be like, oh, that's cringe, especially when he's doing it with River Song sometimes and whatnot. But there was a genuine chemistry there and a genuine kind of coolness about it. And then later on at the end, the regen scene, when he's playing that very, very differently, his face is very different as well in that last scene in the TARDIS. Like he's not welling up or tearing up, but there's like a big sort of emotional thing inside him, and he's talking very quietly and slowly and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if the Moff, directed to an extent and definitely wrote him that way, or if Matt was just doing a combination of both. But that was one of the main things for me, that after I finished watching it, I was like, yeah, Matt was amazing with this. And then just to close out what you were saying about the Moff, it does take like the appreciation level up just one more notch. When you put all of that together and then you finish watching it, you think, yeah, the Moff has gone up another notch in our appreciation level, because we loved him anyway, but it was just those episodes that you thought back to as not being a fan of, and then you come back and watch it and you're like, actually, yeah, fair play, dude.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, in like any showrunner, he's got a couple of duds in there. But I think the thing is with Stephen Moffat's era is it's actually very rewarding, I'm finding, to revisit. And the thing is, this comes back to watching this with hindsight, because at the time, I think it could be quite frustrating, some of the arcs, because he really did. You had to sometimes wait, another series to get the answer to something from two series before, and sometimes you have to wait a long time to get answers to things that could have been wrapped up very quickly. So at the time, I think that could be frustrating, but now you've got it all there. That series, that era is complete. It's very rewarding to go back and watch that. I mean, stuff with the crack in the wall, only being tied up sort of really in this episode when it was in Matt's first series. It really is a very rewarding era to go back and rewatch, actually. And I don't know if the Moff did that intentionally, or if it just sort of fell into place that way, or how much he plotted out. I don't know. But I think that's the other thing about it, is it just makes rewatching his era a lot of fun, because I think when you're waiting for answers, you start to worry you're not going to get them. So you're like, oh, we've only got Matt's last episode, who did this? Why did that happen? And we sort of can relax a little bit and think, actually, it's all right. The Moff sort of pretty much, wraps it all up eventually. So frustrating at the time, but very rewarding on a rewatch.
Yeah, defo. Yeah. And in terms of story as it goes through from start to finish, you do kind of get the feeling that, is it going to come? Is the regeneration going to come? They leave it right until the end, which I know they typically do anyway, but and there's some bits in there that they throw in around. We'll talk about the whole regeneration reset cycle and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the story as it goes through is fairly run of the mill, I would say. So it's Christmas, obviously. So Clara's got her family over for Christmas, and she's struggling with the dinner and so on. So she calls the doctor, but he's in the middle of something. That's where we pick up. So he's got handles, and he's trying to decipher exactly what this message that's being beamed out of this planet, which we now know and we find out through the episode is Trenzalore. That then sends, dread through the doctor, because he knows, because Clara and stuff have been there in his time stream previously. They've seen the doctor's grave. They've seen all that stuff. That's where the doctor supposedly dies. So he knows that stuff's about to go wonky. And then the other part of the story is the whole Time Lords thing. So it kind of transpires that when the Doctor tried to save Gallifrey, I think he put it into like a pocket universe, and these cracks in the wall that have appeared, where he describes it as scar tissue when the universe exploded and he had to reboot it and fix it. Those cracks in the wall is the Time Lords trying to come back through into our universe, I guess. So Moff was doing the whole multiverse thing way before Chibbers. All that stuff.
Well ahead.
Yeah, and then it turns out that the whole crux of the story from that thread is that the church, the Papal mainframe church thing, is essentially there to stop that happening. And the Doctor's not a fan of it happening either, because he knows that when the Time Lords, if they were to come back through into our universe, through that crack in the universe, then the Time War would just resume. So all of the Daleks and Cybermen and all the other people are there, Centaurans and stuff. If the Time Lords came through, the war would resume, all hell would break loose. Not good. No good. Which is why we get the answer to the silence as well. So Tasha Lem, she created the silence in order to go and prevent the Doctor from arriving at Trenzalore in the future, so that he couldn't answer the question, the oldest one in the universe, all that stuff. So that all kind of gets wrapped up reasonably nicely. Don't get me wrong, if you were a fresh person coming into Doctor Who and that was your first episode, then that'd be a bit of a brain melter. But in terms of story, dude, I found that to be relatively okay. I don't know about you, because although I mentioned at the beginning, it's a little bit convoluted where he tries to insert stuff here and there, and as you go through, it's like, and a lot of people complain that he just throws various aliens and monsters for the sake of it, like the angels, the Cybermen, Daleks, all that stuff. But I found that not too bad. I was able to follow that reasonably well. I don't know about you.
Yeah, the monster thing is one of the things that frustrated me watching this back in the day, because I did notice that the Moffat has a habit of doing this. I think if he's running a little bit short on running time or ideas, just monsters start popping up. And I think, is it Hellbent? There's one story, I think it's a Capaldi one, where you can just tell that Moffat's like sat, you can see him sat at the desk thinking, oh, I don't know. He walks into a room and some angels start popping out. It's just, there's no reason for it. It's just like, I've got to kill 10 minutes here. Let's throw the angels in, or let's put the Daleks in there. And he does that a few times. And I think when I watched this back in the day, that was one of the things frustrating me. I was like, oh, angels have popped up already. Tick. Daleks, okay. Tick. Cybermen now, right? Tick. I didn't, but rewatching it yesterday, it does actually work in terms of the story, because they're all, condescending. No, that's not the word. They're all, going to this planet to just, to get the Doctor. So it does work. And actually, the scene with the angels in the snow is brilliant. Totally didn't appreciate that at the time. It's great because
that's cool. Yeah,
they can't see them because of the snow, and it's quite a freaky little scene actually, and works really, really well. But the other thing was as well, back when this was shown, like you said, we had the time of the Doctor, the day of the Doctor, night of the Doctor. There was a lot of baggage, like you said, around this era to do with like the Doctor's name and all this other stuff, and all these loose ends that got to be tied up. And I think that weighed it down slightly as well, which now that I just rewatch it as a standalone episode without all the others around it, without all the Trenzalore and stuff, it kind of works a lot better actually. I mean, I've never been a huge fan of this Doctor Who question. I think it's an interesting idea, but I think it was sort of used a bit too much, because I don't really get why the Doctor can't say his name. I don't know if you do. What's the big deal? Why can't he say his name? Right?
Well, I think this links into another bit of the story about the truth field that's coming out of the clock tower that's surrounding the village of Christmas. So in order for the Time Lords to make sure that the gateway, I guess, back into our universe is going to be opened up legitimately, the only way that they can do that is by it's almost like a security question, I guess.
Yeah,
it's
they
know the answer to the question, obviously. The only one person in the entire universe that also knows the answer is the Doctor. So if he answers it, then they can come through. They don't want to come through into a trap or into something else. So that's why the question's there. He's the only one that can answer that.
But I kind of get that. But I mean, in like the night, no, not the Night of the Doctor. What's the one with Richard E. Grant? Oh, one of those
The
Doctor
Snowman.
episodes. No, not that one.
No.
The other one where they go into his time stream. There's a big thing about tell me your name, and he's about to let, I think it's Clara, die. He'd rather, he just won't say his name. And I'm like, I think there is a reason given, but it kind of bugs me a little bit. Like, why is the Doctor so secretive about his name? What will happen if somebody finds out his name? They probably do answer it somewhere along the line, but I don't know. I never quite got that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think doesn't that play a little bit on the whole theme of the entire show, though? Aren't they just playing on that theme a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like, yeah, the audience don't want to know his name, because I think at the time we were worried that the Moff was going to reveal it, and we were like, no, we don't want to know his name. He's Doctor Who. That's the whole point of it. So it's hammering home that point, but I don't get why in the actual TV show his name is such a big deal. If that makes sense. But yeah, it's an interesting concept to explore, but I think maybe it got a little bit overdone back then. So, but it works well in the context of this story. Like you said, as this sort of password to let the Time Lords through.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a decent sort of culmination of a few things as well. So, although we don't have Matt sort of running around corridors and hopping to different planets and stuff, and it's a big old thing, it does have a sort of a nice build up to it, I guess, where all the different things, all the different species are around the planet just ready to attack. And then we have that moment where he has decided, he's made his decision, right, I'm not going to leave the planet, I'm going to stay here and defend it. And that's where we see the part of the story where he grows old and then he grows older again and he's there. That's kind of cool. And then there's this constant threat, they're being attacked all the time. And it was kind of interesting what Moff did with that, where the Centaurans, they'd lose their cloaking device, and he does with them. And then the Cyberman, who's made of wood, so he doesn't set off the technology alarms and he can infiltrate and stuff like that.
That was strange, wasn't it? The wooden Cyberman.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool, and it builds up to this big thing. So it was okay in that respect. But I guess before we talk about the last part of the episode with the regen, let's talk very quickly about the conversation that he and Clara has about regeneration, because this is a big important part of Doctor Who back in the day. If anybody remembers this back in the day, this was the big thing. It's like back in the early days, like Tom Baker's story, I'm sure it was The Deadly Assassin. It was established then that the Doctor only has 12 regens. That's your lot. You can't have any more than that. And that's kind of been carried through canon right up until modern Who. And then we get to this point where it was on Moff's shoulders really to sort this out, because
it was,
because if you don't have another regen, if this is your last bit, then you've got no show. It's as simple as that. Everything anchors on the Doctor's ability to regen and give us a new actor and a new era of the show. So the Moff was like, right, what are we going to do? And it's interesting that they kind of end the story before they get onto the actual regeneration bit. They kind of settle on this thing where the Moff has created 2 additional Doctors essentially, but we don't count them as that. And I think the Moff put it as like, you shouldn't think about it as numbering each Doctor. You should think about it as putting a number to a face, and try not to number each individual regeneration, because in this one, the Doctor does definitively say that one of the regenerations was used up when Tennant's Doctor puts it into his hand and creates that other Doctor. So before, that was a bit ambiguous. It was like, was that a proper regen? Was that half a regen? Did that not count? We weren't really sure. So the Doctor mentions that as a proper one. And then obviously the War Doctor. So really, he's the 13th Doctor, I guess, at this point. So that's it. Regeneration's up. So did you feel like this was a good reset? And should we mention the timeless child thing that now just makes this all completely irrelevant?
Well, I much prefer this. I've always liked, maybe because I grew up with it, but I've always liked this idea of the Doctor having a certain amount of lives, because it adds an edge to it, doesn't it? It gives a slight danger, that if something did happen to the Doctor, he's only got another one regeneration left. So I like the idea of him only having 30 regens, and I think the Moff dealt with it pretty well, actually, because he just decided, we've got to address this. He probably could have discounted the hand regeneration if he wanted to, but he decided to include it, and I love it. What does the Doctor say? Something about let's not forget old grumpy Drawers, he's still a regeneration. I mean, just wonderful. But so I think it was dealt with pretty well, and it was a kind of like, okay, I'm going to give him another 12. The time, because who else but the Time Lords could do that? So the Time Lords give him another set of regenerations, although it's not as explicit on screen as I remembered it. Like, we kind of just assume that's what they've done, unless I missed a line or something. I thought they actually said, or I thought Clara actually said, please give him some more regenerations. I thought it was more explicit than it actually is. We kind of just assume that's what they've done.
The Doctor
unless
does
I
say
missed
that.
something on this second watch.
He does say that. So I think...
Does he say it?
Yeah, I think so. So Clara just pleads. She's like, help him. Like, if you love him, then help him. And when he's up on the clock tower and he's got the regeneration energy and he's like firing it around and stuff, I'm sure he does say, like, how's this then? A new cycle of regenerations and blah. I'm sure he says something like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure he did. I must have just missed it when I rewatched this yesterday, which is odd because I honestly did not check my phone throughout this entire story. I was totally engrossed in this, which is not even once, didn't even look at it. I was really engrossed in it, but I'm sure he does say something like that, and I must have just missed it. So he gets a new reset of lives, and I think that's great. I like that. I don't really want to go down the whole timeless child route, but you can't help but have it in the back of your mind when you watch that lovely scene between him and Clara. It kind of does take something away from that for me, because you're sort of thinking, no, you don't have 13. You've got Endless. You're not even a Time Lord, and I'm not going to get into it, but it definitely was in the back of my mind, and it's a real mix of emotions because I'm loving that scene between him and Clara. And then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, timeless child, timeless child, timeless child.
Exactly,
and I'm like, shut up, brain. Just enjoy it. I don't want to think about that. So, it does slightly irk me, that, I have to be honest.
Yeah, I'm the same, mate. It was just a tiny little niggle that was at the back of my brain thinking, all of this conversation around regeneration is great. And it's really lovely conversation between the Doctor and Clara. And even like the sacrifice that the Time Lords have made. Like, they've stopped their want, I guess, to come back through because that last crack in the wall closes. That's it. They can't come back now. So they've sacrificed their mission, I guess, to come back to the universe, to gift him that fresh set of regeneration energy, those cycles. And it is really cool when he's up there. He's like, love from Gallifrey, boys.
Oh, brilliant. Again, so many cool punch in the air moments.
Yeah. So that was very cool. But in the back of my mind, there was just that little niggle that made me think all of these very cool moments and all of this stuff means nothing now. Because in canon, unfortunately, the number of regeneration cycles is pointless. It just, it's completely irrelevant now, which is such a shame because one thing you have to give Moff credit for is that he had the balls to make a definitive decision. Right, that cycle of regenerations from Hartnell through to now is done. Here is a new set of regeneration cycles. You've now got... sorry, that was bad English. Here is a cycle of new regenerations that you've got another 13. Here you go, BBC. I've now given you a show, if you want to use it or not, for the next 13 actors, eras that you can go and do your thing with. Whereas Chibbers is like, I don't know, is the Master lying? Is she the timeless child? Is this timeless children thing a thing? We think it is now. We pretty much have that confirmed, but there's still a tiny little doubt of little thing. Is it still going to be uncovered as some, whatever it might be? Whereas the Moff's like, no, this is exactly what's happened. This is what's going to happen. Go and run with it. So I appreciate that he had the balls to not be wishy-washy with it like Chibbers and just, all that rubbish. So, that whole regeneration thing, dude, I thought that was very, very cool. Very cool. Because how do you solve that as a writer? How do you basically say, right, the show's at an end unless we solve this? We need the Doctor, we need the regen. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then before we get onto the regen scene at the end, did you like the scenes in the church with Tasha Lem, you know, the woman who's the head of the church and stuff.
Yeah.
'Cause that was a good combination to me of like some humour with the whole naked thing and the projecting their clothes onto themselves and that stuff, and Clara seeing the silence, you know, sort of reusing some story concepts from previous episodes, but still kind of cool. But the banter between the Doctor and it was kind of River Songy to a degree, but it was kind of cool. So what do you think to those scenes?
Yeah, I was going to say it did. I think a lot of people at the time said, "Oh, was that supposed to be written for River Song?" And I thought, but actually, it's more fresh having somebody else be like that with the Doctor, you know, because can get a bit stale, the whole, you know, River Song thing, flirting with the Doctor. So yeah, this is one of those things at the time I didn't like at all. I was just like, oh, more flirty stuff. Get on with the story. I really enjoyed it yesterday. I thought that, again, down to the performances and the writing, I thought it was really funny, you know, and Matt's just he's such a lad. I love it. Yeah, I did enjoy it. And I'll tell you what I thought was the surprise as well, is how good the set looked. Now, the reason I mentioned this is because it's very Star Wars Death Star, isn't it? Very. But didn't it look good? Like, you know, that could be filmed today. That's a very simple but nice looking set. I thought that sort of dark room with the red carpet and the blue lines, I thought, wow, that's quite epic, you know. It's now nearly 10 years old, this episode, so yeah, or 9 years old, whatever. But yes, I did like the scenes with Tasha Lem, and again, that massively surprised me because I don't remember liking them at the time, but I did find them fun. And I did like the twist as well when he goes back to see her. And he's like, why didn't you call me? And she's like, I repeatedly called your name. And then the Dalek eye comes out of her head. And I was like, OMG, what's happened here? I thought that was a really good moment, a really good twist that I didn't see coming, even though I've watched it before, but obviously forgotten. But yes, that was good as well. I'm really not a fan of those Dalek eyes coming through the skin, though. Never have stalks like that. Never will. Yeah. Don't get that concept at all. But I'm willing to overlook it because it was quite a cool little shocking moment, and I like the way she fights it as well. The way that Matt makes her so angry that it brings her true character to the surface, I thought was a nice little twist. So
yeah, that was cool. And the little mini eye stalks and stuff.
I don't like the mini eye stalk thing,
isn't it? Yeah.
When did that start? Was that Asylum of the Daleks? I think.
Yeah, it was.
I remember thinking at the time, I don't get this at all, don't like it. But yeah, it's only a little bit in this.
I like her as a character, though. I think there's something about her. I think she's got there's some substance there, I think. And I wish we'd have seen maybe a little bit more of her, but not just in this episode, but in Matt's era or even Capaldi's era. I don't know, but... I
was surprised how good she was in it. I don't remember thinking she was good at all when I watched this at the time. But she is. She's a great little character, and she plays the part really, really well. You feel like she's totally into the character, don't you? Like we feel like her and the Doctor genuinely know each other, and they've got a bit of history there. You know, which considering we've never met this character before, have we?
Have we? Have we seen this character?
I don't think so.
We might have done.
Oh, have we? Oh, right. I don't remember.
I can't remember. But
anyway, she was good, I thought. Yeah, surprisingly good. Her and Matt were great together.
Yeah, she's very cool. And I think it was a really good scene for her when the Doctor's telling her to fight it. And she even references, she's like, the Dalek inside me is trying to break free kind of thing. It's quite dark, that bit, because you also don't know what's going to happen to her, essentially, do you? You don't know if she's this kind of hybrid Dalek priestess woman just knocking around the universe, or if the Dalek sort of killed her and things like that. So yeah, she was a good character.
And she goes back and picks up Clara, doesn't she? She's got the TARDIS and stuff. So
she flies the TARDIS. Yeah, that's very cool. That bit. Yeah, very cool. Okay, what did you think too? The little bits with Clara and her family, because there's a little emotional bit where she hugs her grandma. She's missing the Doctor. She knows that he's, at this point anyway, he's just abandoned her. He's tricked her, you know. He's like, go and do this thing in the TARDIS, you know. And essentially it's auto-programmed the TARDIS to take her home to keep her out of harm's way. And then she's bored at the family dinner, you know. Her mum's banging on her or dad's, whatever.
Yeah.
But she's attached emotionally to Gran, you know, she loves her and stuff. So we're not huge fans of Clara, admittedly. It's we both feel like, I think I speak for both of us here, where we feel like her character was just very drawn out throughout the Moff era.
She's very hit and miss. She can be good in some stories and others. I felt like they never quite knew what to do with Clara. She just changed to fit the story a lot of the time.
So what do you think to her in this, though?
Sorry?
What do you think to her in this one, though?
No, she's good in this. I actually think she works really quite well in this. And I was just laughing when you were saying about the fact she gets dumped back on Earth to spend Christmas with her family, because I just imagined Russell choking on his Christmas turkey watching this, because the Doctor tricks her, doesn't he? He's like, go and fix this in the TARDIS and I'll do the rest, and she runs off, and then he tricks her into going back to Earth to safety, which is very similar to what the Ninth Doctor does to Rose in the Dalek two-parter. So I imagine sort of Russell like, that's me, you know, copying his script, but he doesn't do it just once, he does it twice, doesn't he? Which I'm surprised that Clara fell for it twice, because the first time she makes him swear that he'll never do it again, and then he does. She's like, "You never leave me," and no, I won't leave you again. And then he just goes off. But yeah, I thought those scenes worked quite well, actually, and yeah, I thought Clara was pretty good in this one, I have to say. Her interactions with the Doctor towards the end, when he's old and she's sort of almost caring for him, and some of the dialogue in those scenes is beautiful, and the two of them, the performance from both Matt and Jenna is excellent, absolutely excellent. I like the Gran as well. I mean, the Gran's fun. She brings the sort of comedy to the scenes, but she also has that nice emotional little bit, doesn't she, where she's talking about how she met her husband or something.
Yeah.
You know, so the family, although they're stuck in that front room for the whole episode, they do add some nice little moments to the story.
Yes. Yeah, I thought she was okay, Clara. She wasn't too bad. But you could tell that Jenna Coleman was kind of cut up quite a lot. I think it looks to me anyway, like a lot of those tears I think were genuine. I think it was an emotional time, which is probably why she's a little bit more low key. Like sometimes she's a bit in your face and a little bit.
She can be a bit smug. I think, she's written to be a bit smug at times. It does actually bring me on to one thing to do with the regen, mate, and I'm interested to know what you think of this. So, obviously, you know, the Doctor's been travelling with Clara or whatever, and then in the regeneration at the end, we get to see Amelia Pond as a kid running around the top of the console. Obviously, a different girl, we could tell, even though they tried to cut it really quickly, we can still tell it's not the original girl from the other story, probably because she's grown up by then.
She's a teenager at that point.
I was going to say she would probably look different herself, but then we get at the time shock that Amy is back. We get this really short little scene where Amy comes down and says goodbye Raggedy Man or something, isn't it?
Good night.
And it does kind of, I think it's a nice scene, but it does kind of overshadow Clara a little bit. It's like almost pushing her to the side and saying, no, Amy's Matt's companion. That's the one that, you know, this is the duo that you know, everyone likes. I don't know. It felt like it was almost pushing Clara to the side a bit. Not that I'm too bothered about that. And I did think it was nice that Amy come back, but it does, I don't know, it does seem a little awkward somehow, I feel. But what do you think to Amy coming back?
I didn't mind it, actually. Yeah, I thought it was cool. It's he kind of took a leaf out of Russell's book, I think. As I mentioned earlier with Tennant's Regen, he goes back to see some of the other characters from Tennant's run. Yeah,
that's true.
You know, and so I think it's interesting because Clara obviously can't see what the Doctor's seeing. So from Clara's point of view, she just thinks the Doctor's gone a bit balmy before his regen, or he's having some kind of, you know, vision or whatever. So I think from us as the viewer, I think some people might potentially feel like that, like, hello, Clara's right there, you know, and the focus isn't all on Amy. But I think it's one of those things where I'm sure he took a leaf out of Russell's book where he's saying, right, to round out this Doctor's era, let's bring back the first. Because the same way that Tennant did at the very end before he regened, he saw Rose, didn't he? before he
Yes.
properly met Rose, if that makes sense. A bit timey-wimey. You know, I bet you have a great new year, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that I think that he kind of borrowed a bit of inspiration from that.
He says a nice line, doesn't he? It's the first face this doctor saw, or something.
First
I
face
got to say,
this
the
face
writing is
saw.
so beautiful in the regeneration scene. What do you think of the sneeze regeneration as it's become known? So Capaldi sort of is on the screen in the flash. I think it's good they did something different, because it gets a little bit boring, doesn't it? All that.
Well,
Arms out. So I didn't like it at the time, once again, but I quite liked it yesterday. I thought, yeah, that's it. Just get on with it. He's done the speech and bang, here's your new doctor. But then to follow that, I don't like the dialogue that Capaldi comes out with. I don't know why. Never have. About the kidneys.
yeah, well,
I don't
that's
like the colour.
improvised.
I'm like,
yeah.
what? Oh, it's awful.
That
I
was
don't
all
know why
improv
you've
at the
got that
time.
beautiful speech by Matt and then followed by him rambling on about kidneys or whatever. Ridiculous. But anyway, yeah, what do you think of the sneeze regeneration?
Yeah, I don't mind it. It's a bit too quick for me, though.
Yeah.
In my opinion, yeah, because I think it was the right thing to do in this particular instance, though, because we'd already had the Doctor up in the clock tower doing the big regen energy explosions and all that stuff, you know. So we already had the spectacle, which they reserved for previous Doctors at the time with the regen. So I think to do it all again would have been like, oh, come on, we've already done all this bit.
That's true. Yeah. Hadn't thought of it like that.
Although I do think it's a little bit too quick, though. It's kind of cool to watch. Don't get me wrong, it's kind of cool. But I really liked the Tennant to Matt Smith regeneration, where you see his face literally morph into another Doctor.
Oh, yes.
and all that. So I prefer that personally, but I can see the appeal. I can see why people think that the sneeze is cool.
I think you're right, though, because they did it all on the clock tower, didn't they? I suppose you can't really keep doing it. I think you're probably right. It's nice when Matt drops his bow tie on the floor as well, isn't it? Because again, that's so you so associate his bow tie with Matt. You know, you really get the feels. I think in that regeneration scene, it slightly takes me out of it when Capaldi does that, because he kind of looks like a rabid rat or something. He looks odd. He looks odd, and he's banging on about kidneys, and it's like, what?
A rabid rat, yeah.
He's got really wide-eyed and just, I don't know, it's a crazy first scene for Capaldi. I think it's an odd first scene, but
it is kind of weird, isn't it? Because with the previous ones, we've always had a comedic kind of intro to a new Doctor. So I think when Tennant burst on, he was like, Barcelona, you know, we had that kind of comedic thing, and then when Matt Smith came on board, he just starts sort of, you know, I'm a girl, at least I'm not gingy. No, we've had that kind of funny thing, whereas Capaldi's like the opposite, isn't it? It's almost like this kind of aggressive, almost in really intense, like completely non-comedic sort of thing. So yeah, I think that's Moff maybe just putting a stamp on, like, forget what you've seen before. This is going to be like a brand new style of Who and Doctor. So, I'm not a huge fan of the sneeze, but I can see its appeal. But there were some lovely little things, though. You mentioned earlier that this was a bit of a love letter to Matt's Doctor. Remember the scene where he's dancing in the party with the kids in the village, and he's doing the crazy giraffe dance thing that he did back in Amy's wedding and stuff. And there were some lovely little moments like that. But in the regen, that was a really lovely scene at the end where, I don't know if you've seen the special features. Were they still doing Confidential at this point? I can't.
Not sure.
Not sure, but there's a special feature anyway on the DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, where before production started, they were doing the read-through, where the script was 90% there and they were doing a read-through. And Matt Smith just breaks down in that read-through. He's sort of halfway through that last speech, like, you've got to keep moving. That's good. You know, that bit. Yeah. And I think that bit where he's like, what is it? I'll always remember when I was that bit.
Oh, when I was the Doctor, I'll never forget a word of it. Yeah.
Yeah. In that point, Matt Smith's just done in the read through. Wow. He can't even continue. And Moffat gets up and walks around and they hug and stuff. So it really is a tearjerker, that last bit.
I've never seen that.
Yeah. It's a really cool. So that's what I meant earlier when I'm sure that Jenna Coleman's tears were genuine. And Matt Smith's well up and everything like that was cool. So for me, a lovely regen scene. Really just, I don't care that it's a bit fan servicey and Amy's back and stuff like that. I just think it's a really lovely, very emotional, very cool goodbye. And it kind of I think it does his Doctor wonders as well. The fact that he didn't go out trying to save one particular person like we had with Rose, you know, and he didn't go out trying to do one selfish thing or anything like that. He essentially was prepared to die saving the people of that lived in that village in Christmas. And I love that about him. That is so Matt's Doctor.
Absolutely.
So yeah, regeneration stuff, dude. I think it's a lovely, really good send off.
It is. I think that's what I appreciated from this episode. Watching SD, it is a love letter to Matt's Doctor. I love the scenes when he's like being dragged out by the kids. Oh, what have we got today? And he's like mended something for one of them, and he's got this little catapult out, and he's just so brilliant in those scenes when he's like, "Go on then, what are we fighting today?" And he's just imagine Matt's Doctor settling down on that planet and accepting that he was going to die there, and you know, I'm going to defend this till my last breath. And you know, as I said, I really appreciated the writing of this story. Yes, you're right. It's not like a mega story. It's not like the best storyline ever, but it's a beautiful love letter to Matt's Doctor. And I'm just going to quickly mention the direction here as well, because I think it's really beautifully directed. It looks very nice. It's a beautiful episode. I think there's probably one dodgy CGI scene. I think the angle looks a bit off when they're on the balcony at one point, but otherwise it still stands up really well. The city looks nice. The CGI is decent. The colour's beautiful, but the directing's really good in this. Who was the director? Jamie Payne or someone like that?
It was.
Can't remember now.
Yeah, Jamie Payne. Yep.
Jamie Payne. It's not a name I know. I just remember reading it before we started because I wanted to mention him. I think he does a great job of the direction. There are some beautiful shots in this, and there's a great scene. It's very Clockwork Orange. It's just a shot of like Matt's Doctor silhouetted with some people behind him, and he's swinging his cane. It's a glorious shot, beautiful, but it does remind me of something out of Clockwork Orange. But yeah, very beautifully directed. And you mentioned it earlier. I think one of the things I just loved about rewatching this was the music. Murray's music, mate, really sells those. I mean, you've got Matt and Jenna giving amazing performances, underscored by Murray's absolutely gorgeous music. You know, when Clara's theme kicks in at the start, I was just transported back to, this is beautiful. And you know, Moffat's era often gets described as like having a fairy tale feel about it, which I think is kind of true, and I get that. As soon as Murray's music floats in, and you know, the way it's written and stuff, there is this sort of fairy tale feel. It does drag you into another world, and but I think Murray's music's a big part of that. It's absolutely gorgeous in this episode. So you've got great direction, you've got great performances, you've got great music. It really, you know, all comes together to make a really nice, if not the best storyline. It really comes together to make a really beautiful episode.
Yeah, and Murray did some really cool stuff with this one as well, because along with the new stuff that he had written specifically for the episode, which was really nice, he also used a couple of themes from previous Doctors as well. So the bit where Clara arrives back on Trenzalore, and she's walking up to the church and the doors and stuff, we can hear a piece of music called Final Days, which is from The End of Time. And she's walking up the stairs, and then we hear the Four Knocks theme just very slightly as she's doing that stuff. And so we hear like some other previous themes from previous bits that he had kind of nicely inserted in, that you wouldn't sort of sit up and be like, oh, because I did when they started playing Final Days. I thought, yeah, that's from. It's very similar to Rose's theme. It's got a real nice sort of emotional sort of anchor to it. But yeah, the music, dude, was so good. Really, like, it just had a perfect mix of action when it was needed and humor and emotion and stuff. Yeah, it was really good. When Murray's on fire, he's on fire.
Yeah. And I mean the name, no, what's it called? The Doctor theme that got played to death. I think it's only, I might be wrong, but I think it's only in this once, and it works really well. I think I'm right in saying that. You know,
I am the Doctor.
You know, you think being Matt's last episode, they might have put it in every 5 minutes, but I think I'm right in saying it just kicks in. It's really nice, actually. It's a sort of deeper version of it. It's when Clara says, what's happened to him, and they get in the title, you think, oh, here we go, it's all kicking off, and it works really, really well in that context when it's not overused. That theme, it's a great theme actually.
Yeah,
just got way overplayed, didn't it? Unfortunately, but
yeah, and it's the music's very cool as well. Near the climax where he's up at the clock tower and he's shooting the regen energy, it's almost like a sort of closing off parallel, I guess, to the Pandorica episodes, where the Pandorica opens, when he goes up on the hill at Stonehenge and he does that really good shouty speech, because you've got all of the ships.
Shouty speech.
Yeah, you've got a very similar thing where you've got sort of Cybermen, Centauran, Dalek ships, and he's like, he's shouting at them to, like, basically, have a go if you want some, but I've beaten you all before. That's the gist of the speech. And this one's almost like a nice conclusion, because he's doing the same thing, but he's actually stopping them. He's still doing the shouty speech up at the ships and stuff, but yeah, so that was cool. But the music at that point is very good. I think it's I Am the Doctor, but like a slower, big, more sort of bombastic version of it, I think. But
yeah, I think you're probably right, actually.
Cool. Yeah. What does he shout in Pandorica Opens? It's really cool. Just remember something. I can't remember exactly what he says, but that's such a great
speech. On the rock.
Yeah.
And just remember this.
Something
I can't
like
remember, but Matt was
cool.
great at delivering a shouty speech, wasn't he?
Oh, that's one of the heartbreaking things as well, is like every episode that we rewatch of Matt's, he just cements himself as one of the best Doctors ever.
He's one of my favourites. I say
good.
Every time we review him, he's phenomenal, and it's frustrating really that some of his stories are not considered the best, or are not that strong, because he was such a good Doctor, and he's sort of the epitome of the sort of Doctor that can carry a story. Like, even the ones that aren't that good, he's always pretty much, I think there's only one story we've agreed where he's not quite on top of form, which I think is Nightmare in Silver, but most of the time Matt is just absolutely on fire as the Doctor.
Yeah,
he's everything I want from the Doctor in terms of his performance. And Moffat really got him, didn't he? Moffat really, I am talking. But Moffat really writes Matt's Doctor well, doesn't he? I think Moffat had a clear sort of idea of the sort of quirky Doctor he wanted Matt to be, and Matt's performance with Moffat's writing is just a dream, I think.
Here we go, dude. I can't believe we forgot this, but yeah, he's like, I'm talking. And he's like, come on, no plan, no backup, no weapons worth a damn. And anything else, I don't have anything to lose. So if you're sitting up there in your silly little spaceships with your silly little guns and you've got any plans on taking a Pandorica tonight, just remember who's standing in your way. That was the bit. Oh, how can we forget that? That's so cool.
Just remember who's standing in your way.
Yeah.
Might
have to rewatch that, dude.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to do it. I think I'm just going to watch the Matt era right from the start all the way through. Just go and do it. I love it.
That's a good plan, dude. Something very, very small before we get on to the score. So Tasha Lem, I wondered if she was alive or dead and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she died shortly after we see her in the episode. So during the siege of Trenzalore, she died. And as a sign of respect, she was buried with a TARDIS key. Yeah. So she sadly died shortly after.
That reminds me, Matt has a key hidden in his hair, doesn't it? Well, his wig at one point.
Yeah.
So what was the thing with the wig? Because had he shaved his head for a part in another show or something? I can't remember, because Matt Smith is actually bald in this, isn't he?
He is, yeah. So he's
which is why
kind of
Moff
bald.
wrote it.
Yeah. He had
would you have noticed it was a wig before he took it off? Because I don't think I would have.
No, it looks pretty sweet.
It's pretty good, yeah.
They so he shaved it for a part in another thing, and then they just whacked a wig on it. And interesting bit of trivia is that when Karen Gillan came back to film her scene, she was also bald, because she had shaved her head, like the Guardians of the Galaxy thing, yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
So they were both rocking the old wigs.
That's quite funny, isn't it? They both shaved. That's crazy. She's great in those films, by the way. Love Nebula. Just two little things I wanted to mention, two little lovely details, and there's probably more, but I spotted a couple of nice little classic era Easter eggs in this, which I hadn't noticed the first time. So the seal of Gallifrey is whacked on Handel's head at one point, and the Doctor references, I stole this from the Master in the Death Zone. So a nice little callback to the Five Doctors, which totally went over my head the first time watching this. So that was lovely to see, and it looks just like the actual prop as well. It was great. And also in the background of one of the scenes, you can see a Punch and Judy show going on. And it's, I think it's the 12th, I think it's Matt's Doctor and a monoid, I think. I freeze framed it. It looked like a monoid from the first Doctor story.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What's it called? The Ark, is it? I don't know. But yeah, some lovely little Easter eggs thrown in there. I was just having a look on Wiki to see if I could find out if I've got that right, but people will know what I'm talking about. So yeah, just really nice little inclusions for sort of classic fans as well.
Yes. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, dude, I think we've gone pretty in depth on that one, but I've got nothing else on my notes. Have you got anything?
No, not at all. No, the only thing I want to ask you is what you thought of the wooden Cyberman, because that comes in for a bit of stick, and I sort of get why, but I like the design of it. I just quickly wondered what you thought. Do you like the wooden Cyberman, or is it a little bit silly?
It's silly, but it works in the context of the story.
Yeah. I think it's a great design, isn't it? It looks great on screen, and I love the fact that Matt's Doctor's so pleased that he's tricked him. He's like, "Oh, you stupid thing! You've shot yourself. It doesn't even work on wood." And I thought it's quite funny. So I like the scene, but I kind of get why people think it's a bit ridiculous, but I like it.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah, but no, I don't think I've got anything else, mate. I think we've pretty much covered it.
Okay, cool. I liked the little cameo from Tessa Peake-Jones from Only Fools.
Yes,
I thought
she was in it more than she is. Yeah,
really briefly. She plays Marta with her husband Barnacle. They're the couple that they bump into first when they get to the village, and they explain the truth filter and all that stuff. And I just thought I thought Orla Brady as Tasha Lem was very cool. I really liked that character. And that was it, really. That's all I've got on my notes. And Handles was a nice little thing to have in there.
Handles is great. I'd completely forgotten about Handles. He's brilliant. Actually, all the cast in this are great. You know, when we talk about side characters, there's a chap who's in it for literally seconds. The Doctor keeps calling him Barnacle. He's like, "Are you Barnacle?" And he's like, "No, I'm not Barnacle, sir." And even people like that that've got one line are giving a really lovely performance. And I just think the cast are on top form in this. Everybody.
Yeah, I agree, dude. Alrighty then, let's get on to scores. I think it's me to go first.
Yeah, it is you this week.
And I'm going to give this an 8.5.
Oh, snap.
Oh, it's really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't quite go to a 9 just because, like we've said a few times, the story is quite simplistic. It's more of a love letter, but it's a beautiful love letter. So can't quite reach a 9, but it's a very strong 8.5, yeah. Yeah,
same as, dude. The story is a little bit sort of mixy-mashy, a little bit convoluted at times, but for me, the performances just far outweigh like the negatives with the story and narrative and stuff. I think it's a really, really well acted and stuff.
And the feels, mate, you must have got it. When I switched it off, you must have felt the same. Did you not just sit there and think, blimmin' heck? I love that feeling. I don't, not to bang on about the new series, but I just really miss getting that, and to rewatch something like this and still get those feelings, it's really nice. I hope to one day get those feelings again from a new episode. That would be good.
Yeah, snap, dude. Totally. Okay, well, it's an 8.5 then from both of us. What did our listeners think? So over on Twitter, Thomas Hines says a good regen story and a sad ending for the 11th Doctor, gives it a 10 out of 10.
Wow, 10, okay.
Rob over at the Doctor Who show says tissues at the ready because it's such a mess. Yeah,
Rob.
My overriding memory of seeing for the first time is just sheer disbelief that we went from the near note perfect day of the Doctor to this. Packed with stuff that just left me cold and felt like a terrible finale for the Doctor. A 5 out of 10. Maybe
give it a rewatch, Rob, because I must admit that's kind of how I felt when I watched it for the first time. I've really, really changed my mind on it, but maybe give it a rewatch.
Middle of the road from Rob there. Sam Dooley says, really tough relationship with this one. So many good ideas rushed across a time that is way too short. Matt puts in a terrific performance and there are some standout moments. The regen scene is a tearjerker, but it falls flat for me. Another 5 out of 10.
Ooh,
Jeff Tullin says, love Handles. See what I did there? Love Handles.
Yes.
Yep. Loved the bald reveal. Felt Tasha was intended to be River somehow. Loved the wooden Cyberman, the crack in the wall, emotional farewell to Matt. Won't be the same for Jodie, I'm sure. Times change and so must he. We'll always remember. We will, Jeff. Jamie Houston says Matt Smith and the 11th Doctor deserves a better finale than this. It feels like a story where they threw everything but the kitchen sink at the wall in the hope something would stick. Having said that, the 11th Doctor's farewell speech is beautiful. 5 out of 10.
Another 5. Ooh.
Doctor Who Home says, my third fave story of all time. There's so much going on at breakneck speed, but it knows when to slow down. Yeah. The way it neatly ties up the exploding TARDIS and cracks in time is satisfying, and the old 11 is the perfect send-off to this Doctor. The new regen cycle is an epic continuation of the show, and the regen itself is moving, not to mention how good the Siege of Trenzalore itself as a concept is. 10 out of 10.
Okay.
The Courier of Who, I love this episode, is shown how kind and brilliant his Doctor could be. For me, it's a solid 9 out of 10. Will Sanger says the worst pre-regen story. The only good part is the final scenes with Matt Smith. There are too many lingering questions and it wastes the potential of the Doctor on his final regen. There are also way too many villains and a lot of jarring Christmas humour. A 3 out of 10.
Ooh. Wow.
Will not happy. Let's see what Chippy T thinks. I would have loved the Time Lords to have told the Doctor that he can have more lives, but only at the expense of his current one. He can save the village and Clara, but there has to be a bigger price. Him. The crack was his final hope. Good ending, and nice to see the big Ginge KG. 8.5. Decent score.
KG, yeah.
Tom Turlow says, I haven't seen it since it was first broadcast, so my memories are a bit vague, but I do remember it being a bit underwhelming. I really liked Matt Smith and thought he deserved a bigger and bolder exit than this, but it was entertaining enough for 7 out of 10. And lastly, Sarah Louise, the running Whovian, says it was okay, but not what I'd expected for Matt's exit. I liked the concept of the message, quote unquote, bringing the Doctor's foes to one place, but they were underutilised. It felt rushed as the loose ends were tied up and the regen issue addressed. It may have fared better as a two-parter, a 6.5 out of 10. And don't get me started on Capaldi's kidneys.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
6.5. That was the reviews we got in on Twitter. We had a few over on Facebook. Martin Arnold said, having to bring back Karen Gillan sets the tone moving forward and completely hobbles the show. How can you have confidence in your current characters if you need old ones to sell them? And again, the resolution relies on having to stitch up old plot points that were never properly resolved. The crack in the wall and the silence. Moffat just cannot manage the plates he's spinning. It's okay, but creaks under its own weight. I kind of agree with that, Martin. I do.
I sort of see what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, I do see what you mean. Which is, I think, what we mentioned earlier is that you can see that issue with the story, but you can sort of overlook it, I think, with how enjoyable it is and the performances and stuff. Rob Kelly, can't get past the wig. 4 out of 10. Short and sweet. Cameron Artley says, this one seems to have lost its touch over the years. It feels like the Moff didn't get to finish all of his ideas with 11, so they got smashed into one adventure. This could have done with another episode. 7 cyber handles out of 10. Smashed into another episode. Andrew Stewart says, I've always found this story criminally underrated and a great send-off for my third favourite Doctor, below John Pertwee and Peter Davison. Yes, the whole naked going to church thing is really weird, and I don't know how much red wine the Moff drank to come up with that. I also think it ties up a lot of plot holes through Matt's era, and that speech is so beautiful and heartbreaking. An 8.5.
Okay.
P.S. I remember not wanting to watch the first few Capaldi stories because I was so upset. Thankfully, I really enjoyed Capaldi's Doctor. I went back to watch the episodes that I missed.
Cool.
Toby Coleman says, Matt Smith's regen had the hard job of trying to tie up all the threads from his era up. I think it succeeds just. I enjoyed it for the most part. However, there was a lot going on. I can see why some people wouldn't like Tash Lem, but I didn't mind her. I thought Clara's family was wasted, as were cool concepts like a wooden Cyberman. Matt and Jenna have good performances, especially in the regen. Overall, a slightly overstuffed, like a turkey Christmas special that is a fun enough adventure. A 7 out of 10. Simon Ascuri says, my first watch, I thought it was a mess. Second rewatch onwards, I get what the Moff was trying to do. Making it a Matt Smith era best of package episode. He is wrapping up most of the plot holes from series 5 up to this point. Lots of little Easter eggs in the dialogue and the performance that Matt Smith's in the performance that Matt Smith gives. Every rewatch, I notice something else. Good fun, 7 out of 10.
Cool.
And lastly, Charlie Turner says, I'll always remember when the Doctor was me. Yes, lovely line. While its pace is a bit far too quick for my liking and plot holes here and there, it is nice to see that some of the questions we, the fandom, had during Matt's time were answered, but at the same time, frustratingly, not all of them, like whose voice was in the TARDIS that said, "Silence will fall" in the Pandorica Opens. All it took was one line of dialogue and we would have been convinced. Okay. It's quite a long review from Charlie and goes on to give it an 8 out of 10.
An 8?
Scores, dude. Mostly good, I would say. We had some 10s, we had some 9s, 8s and 7s, but we also had a few 3s and 5s. So
I must admit, if I'd have scored it before I rewatched it, I probably would have been down the lower end. It's only on a rewatch that I think it's really gone up in my estimations. Part of me is wondering, though, is it because am I liking it more because it's so much better than what the show is now? Like, is it just a nostalgic? Oh yeah, this was. I don't. No, it's not. Is it? I mean, the writing is good.
Yeah,
it is fun. It's a fun watch, isn't it? But you know what I mean? I'm just sort of thinking, is it because it's taken me back to when I liked the show? I don't know, but it's definitely better than I remembered anyway.
Yeah, defo. Righty then. Thank you very much, everybody, for sending in your tweets and Facebook messages with your scores and your mini reviews. Very much appreciated, as always. Next week, dude, what we got?
Yeah, so next week we're going to be starting Torchwood Miracle Day. Now, blimmin' heck, this is going to be interesting because once again, I mean, I don't think I even finished watching it. I really didn't like this at the time. So let's see if it's improved with age or if my opinion's changed given a bit of time. I don't know, but I don't know about you, mate. I don't know if you've ever watched this, but I feel like this is going to be watching a new series. I don't think I even finished it back when it was shown. I got about halfway through the series, I think.
Yeah, I've seen all of Torchwood, but I've only ever watched all of them once originally. It's only since you and I have started reviewing them on the podcast that I've started to rewatch them. So I honestly can't remember, dude. My feelings on this one at the time, I don't know. Much like the episode we've reviewed today, is it worth just giving it a rewatch and seeing what we think? But if I remember, it wasn't as good as Children of Earth.
No, I mean, I was going to say we loved Children of Earth, didn't we? We've just finished reviewing that and we loved it. And it's exciting to go on to New Torchwood to see where it carries on from there. But yeah, I can't even remember if I finished watching the series. I think I did, but I can remember very little. So this is called The New World, isn't it? Episode 1, Miracle Day, The New World.
Yes. Yeah.
Will be next week.
Indeedy. Yes.
Let's see what it's like.
Okie dokie. And on that note then, let's wrap it up for 349.
Alrighty.
Thank you for coming back and listening to the Big Blue Box podcast for another week. That was episode 349. Thank you very much again for sending in your scores and mini reviews for The Time of the Doctor. A good one. That, if you've not given it a rewatch in a while, then go and give it one. Definitely. And give it a good old watch and stick on some of the other Matt Smith stuff as well. What an amazing Doctor, eh? Right, so next week, as Adam said, we are back to Torchwood. We're going to get through Miracle Day. There's 10 episodes of that one, so we're going to kick off with, as Adam said, the first one, which is The New World. So we'll see what happens with that one. Written by Russell T Davies, so hopefully will be a good one. We'll see. So keep an eye on the socials. We'll be asking for your scores and stuff on that, as always. In the meantime, remember to follow and subscribe to the podcast in your fave podcast app so you won't miss an episode when it lands every Friday. And you can listen for free on the website too. If you're at work and you've got your browser open and you want to listen over there, you can do that. It is bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. All the episodes are on there. And all of the articles and reviews from our cool writing team. So go and check those out as well. We're on the socials too, Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. And we've got a free Discord server as well. All the links are on the website. Come and sign up. Come and give us a like and a follow and chat with other Who fans. Check out Adam's stuff over on YouTube. The Geek's Handbag. Go and do that.
Geek's Handbag. Yeah, if I can pull my finger out, there'll be a new vid out today, hopefully.
Yay. Yeah, go and check it out. Adam's on the socials too, under the same name, The Geek's Handbag. So yeah, grab a cup of tea, check out Adam's stuff, and come and give us a like and a follow everywhere. We'll chat Doctor Who throughout the week. Until next time, my name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And remember,